Hi everybody and welcome to another edition of Race Day Preview. With me, Gavin Faretra. I'm Dave D'Onofrio. Glad to have you with us this week after what I must say, Gavin, might have been the perfect NASCAR race.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it? It had a little bit of everything. Lots of leaders, lots of records set, and everything like that. The end was a little bit, with the whole green-white checker finishes, wrecks, typical stuff for Talladega, but at the same time, it kind of took it away a little bit from my interest until that last lap, and I'll tell you, that was about as good as you can get.
Yeah, I think with the multiple green-white checkered, it sort of sets up some anticlimactic stuff before you get the real big finish. I mean, a last turn pass for the lead, for the win, is about as exciting as it gets, but at the same time, that whole first lap and a half, you're thinking, okay, when's the yellow coming? When's this thing just going to end under caution? And it didn't, fortunately, but that's the situation where we were in.
Yeah, and we've talked in the past about the whole phantom cautions that we see sometimes, and that wasn't the case. Those are legit cautions. Absolutely, that happen, yeah. And it's Talladega. Stuff's going to happen, and guys are muscling for the lead and trying to get up there, and it's understandable. But at some point, you're kind of just like, oh, let's just get this thing over with. But I mean, the finish that we got made it all worth it for sure.
Absolutely, and that finish, Kevin Harvick, I think, made the absolute perfect move. He timed it perfectly. He gave McMurray no chance to retaliate. He just pulled off everything perfectly, bided his time, used a slingshot to perfection. Couldn't have been any better.
Yeah, and that whole last lap, we talked last week about who our sleepers were and stuff like that, and Jamie McMurray was right there, and I'm saying, hang on, buddy, because I wanted to see him finish up well. I really thought that he brought it in those last few laps and really hung in there. But like we said, it really speaks to the driver that Kevin Harvick is, and he's going to be a very a very good free agent, lack of a better term there, but he is going to just be a high commodity, I think, for these teams that are going to be looking for someone to join their team.
Yeah, interesting. His last win before Talladega was the 2007 Daytona 500, his first race with Shell Pennzoil on the hood. This past week, Shell Pennzoil announces it's going to Penske. Kurt Busch is going to be its driver in 2011, and Kevin Harvick takes them to victory lane. You mentioned he's a free agent here coming up. There was also reports last week that him and RCR were basically at wit's end. They were 100% done. Maybe it's a reflection on Harvick's personality. He doesn't appear to be outwardly the most easy guy to get along with. But does a weekend like last weekend show you that none of that matters? This guy can flat out drive, and he's going to get a job in a very good spot.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the guy's good. I mean, it just we see guys, JJ aside, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, this guy just continues to roll and continue to win. But guys are going to go through their slumps, highs and lows. But he's coming out this year gangbusters. I mean, that's his first win, but he's just been so solid just about every week. He's got 2 wins on the Truck Series. He's raced 3 times, 2 wins, 1 second. He's got a win on the Nationwide. So he is just an excellent race car driver, and right now he's proven it.
I think he's the total package. You look at him
Absolutely.
From a business perspective, his Kevin Harvick Incorporated trucks have won championships. He stepped in for arguably one of the greatest drivers of all time, Dale Earnhardt, and seamlessly took that team back to victory lane that same season. Mm-hmm. I think he's the total package as far as ownership, as far as leadership, and as far as being able to handle a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. He is the whole package, and it's nice to see it finally pay off for him on the Sprint Cup. It's been a while since we've seen him in victory lane, but it was nice to see that Shell Pennzoil, the big yellow car, driving in victory lane this week, and just an awesome finish. I mean, you can't really say enough about how amazing that finish was. I mean, you just look at it, watching it live, I was so happy that I tuned in for those last few laps for sure.
One guy who would have loved to have been around for the finish but wasn't was Jeff Gordon. We talked last week about this being sort of like a wrestling feud between Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon. If that's the case, I think last week Johnson pulled the Marty Jannetty and went face first through the glass at the barbershop because Gordon was not happy after the race. He swore on TV, if you want to count some words as swears. He was not happy. Since then, Johnson's apologized, but is Johnson apologizing because he feels like he has to, and Gordon is the senior member of that team? or is Johnson really contrite?
Well, before I get to that, for him, those are swears, because this is a guy, Jeff Gordon, he always says the right things on camera, whether he wants to or not. What he says behind closed doors, we don't know, but I mean, he's always saying the right thing. So he was obviously, like he said after that race, it takes a lot for him to get mad. So I think it's tough to read. I mean, it's so hard to read these guys. I don't know if Johnson was, he pulled out looking to possibly, he seems to always do the right things, to possibly get a draft and then push to the front. He said he made a mistake. The fact that he came out and said that, is it something that Hendrick's telling him to do? I don't know, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. But either way, there's something going on there.
Yeah, and I think we'll know by whether this gets bigger or whether it starts to fade away slowly. It's not going to fade away quickly, but if this thing gets any bigger, I think we have our answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this last week, and I don't think I actually said it on camera, but I believe that would be the end of it. We wouldn't see this happen again. Now, I don't know. Like you said, until if it does happen again, it's just going to escalate, and I don't really want to see anything happen with that team, because it's kind of an exciting dynamic with them. Such a strong unit, but at the same time, some controversy isn't a bad thing either.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm kind of hoping it goes in that direction, just because Jimmy Johnson is not the most interesting guy. He's a great race car driver, has a tremendous amount of ability, but we've never seen him in a position of vulnerability.
Right.
And I think it'd be cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a change in dynamic and just something new, which isn't a bad thing.
In terms of vulnerability, that's who I'm going to be watching this weekend. Not necessarily Jimmy Johnson, but another guy who I'm sensing some vulnerability in, and that's Tony Stewart. His teams have 3 top 10s at Richmond in 4 tries since he became an owner. 2 straight weeks he could have easily had a better finish, but most recently he has not been able to finish. He's down to 14th in points. I sense a little bit of desperation from especially that number 14 team, and I'll be keeping an eye on them this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to be keying in on the whole Johnson-Gordon dynamic, and it's going to be easy too, because anytime that they are within a half mile of each other on that track, they are going to be, which isn't much, yeah. but whenever they're close, the camera's going to be cued in on them. So I want to see what they do, if they're going to work as a team, or if we're going to see this, escalate into something further.
And it's not exactly the longest track, so
right.
It could be something very innocent that turns into something much bigger.
Exactly.
Sleeper picks now. I'm going to go with another guy who kind of needs this race to cement himself, Juan Pablo Montoya. He's been pretty good 2 out of the last 3 weeks in the top 5, but his average finish at Richmond is 26.3. If this team performs well this weekend, I think I'd be ready to say they're on the climb, they're coming up. They might even get in the chase.
For me, it's going to be Clint Boyer. 1 win in 8 tries here at Richmond, 1 top 5, 4 top 10s, an average finish under 10, 9.6. So in the last 3 years. So 3 top 10s in his last 4 races is what's really catching my eye more than what he's done at Richmond. I think the fact that he's building himself up a little bit more, looks like he's got himself into a little bit of a groove. 2 weeks ago, 36th place finish, I believe it was. But other than that, he's got himself in the top 10, which is what you need to do to get yourself into the chase. And I'm going to be looking at him all weekend.
Boyer's a guy I considered for my fantasy picks this week. Didn't ultimately go with him. I probably could have, because I need to catch up on Gavin here a little bit. I'm still in the lead, as you can see, but he made up some ground last week. Fantasy-wise, I'm going with Denny Hamlin. The Virginia native has always been strong at this track. Kevin Harvick, Brian Vickers, and Sam Hornish Jr. are my choices.
Yeah, I got Jeff Gordon as my A-list driver. Just 7.4, average finish in 18 races here at Richmond. So he knows how to get around the short track for sure. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Can't believe I'm rolling with him again, but another solid finish for him last week. For Dale Jr. As far as he's concerned in that right. But Jeff Burton also on my B list, 14 career top 10s there, and why not AJ Allmendinger? I'm not going to give you a reason why.
I love these C-list picks. Winner this week, why don't you go first?
All right. I got Kyle Busch this week, and the only reason is just it's got to turn around for him at some point. He's got to pick up a win. Why not Richmond? 1 win in 10 tries there, sure, but 8 top 5s, 8 top 10s, 7.5 average finish in his last 3 years. The guy's overdue for a win, and I think I said this last week. I'm pretty sure he was my pick last week too. It's got to be this week, I think, at Richmond.
And I don't know about that, 'cause I think Denny Hamlin's going to win. 4 top 5 finishes in his 8 career starts there. He's got a win. His average driver rating is 121. There's only 3 guys whose average driver rating at Richmond is over 100. He's run 95% of the laps there on the lead lap. I think this is his week at his home. He's going to take it 3 out of 5. For Gavin, I'm Dave. We'll talk about that next week.
Take care.